Before I move into my new house, and I will tell you a little bit about it, there are some renovations that I wanted to do. Now, this house was mostly move-in ready, but because I work from home and I film at home, and because there were a couple things that really bothered me about this house, there were some changes that I wanted to make. So in this video, I'm gonna walk you through exactly what I needed to do before I even set foot in this house, because in my past experience of renovations, once you move into the house, you're much less likely to get things done. And I just wanted to front load as much as I could. And I have a few more videos in this series coming out as well, so make sure that you stay tuned for that. If you haven't done so already, make sure that you subscribe to the Clean My Space channel and give this video a thumbs up if you're as excited as I am about renovations. When I walked into this house initially, this is a townhouse. I was surprised at how large and spacious and light it felt, because I've lived in a townhouse before that did not feel like this. So I was a little apprehensive, but once I walked in, I really did have that feeling of like, wow, this would be an amazing house to live in if I could just change this and this and this. The walls were really dark here. I found it too imposing. I wanted to have a really bright light entrance, which is exactly what I have now. The other thing is that there were no pot lights in this house. It was all light fixtures, like flush mount light fixtures, and they really stuck out. The other thing I noticed on the ceilings, which was glaringly obvious, was the popcorn. And you know, you hear this from people, don't do popcorn ceiling removal once you've moved in, because it's a real mess and it's very hard to access all of the ceilings if you have furniture in the home. So the popcorn ceiling removal was something that I made sure to get done right before I moved in. Love it or hate it, whatever opinion you might have, I wanted to feng shui my house, because this is really a new space for me and a new start in life. And I felt that it was really important to make sure that I had everything going for me in this house. So I did a bunch of research and I found someone who I want to say is a third generation feng shui practitioner. And she was able to point out some of the really great things, but also some of the things that I needed to be aware of. But one of the worst things, the biggest offenders in this house, was the staircase that led right out the door. And when I tell you this staircase led right out the door, there was like maybe 3 or 4 feet between the staircase and the front entrance. The other thing is, it just took up so much space, especially because I have another staircase right there. Like, it actually made no sense. So at first, when she suggested this to me, I was like, girl, that sounds expensive. But then I spoke to my contractor, who I had brought in to do some of the other things around the house, and he priced it out for me, and I was shocked at how affordable this job was going to be. So what needed to happen, first and foremost, was they had to remove the staircase. So they had to pull down the drywall, then they had to remove the actual stairs, like the risers and the treads, and then they had to remove the pickets. And what I had them do was find a really smart place to end the staircase and the platform, if you will, and we decided this was the right spot for it, right here where this railing was. And then they just reused the wood and the pickets, and they made a little lookout balcony over there. And honestly, when I walk into this house now, it feels so much more efficient in terms of the use of space. The other thing that I did was I built in this little benched seating area. Now, of course, I had some very expensive ideas. I have some beautiful built-in banquettes that I wanted to put here. However, we are limited. We have a budget. So I just went for something really simple, which was essentially like an MDF bench with some storage space underneath. And then I decided to kind of zhuzh it up a little bit with some pillows. Always have had this thing with round tables in the entryway. It just feels like you're walking into a very expensive hotel. And that is why another kind of vision that I had was having a beautiful round table. So I went on Facebook Marketplace and I found one, and I put a few beautiful things on here that feel really good colors in terms of feng shui for the front entrance. And I also make sure to have fresh flowers here at all times. A couple other elements that I brought into this space a coat rack, which I feel is really important. I finished it off by putting a rug down at the bottom, a really beautiful kind of oriental rug. I think it warms the space up. And what I love too about it is that it's not precious. So I don't care if people come in and they get, mud on it or spills. I can easily clean this thing with like a Bissell, and I don't care. I didn't spend a lot of money on this rug. So I don't mind that it's here in the front entrance. Now, the other function that this rug serves, aside from sort of tying the space all in, is that I had to retile a certain section of this floor because the staircase obviously had no tiles underneath. So my contractor had the very exciting job of finding the tiles that worked in the space because we weren't left with any spare tiles. So if you look really closely, if you ever come to my house and you lift up this rug and you're that person, you will notice that the tiles over here are slightly different than the tiles over here. And you know what? I'm okay with that because I know sometimes you can get so caught up in renovations and it can become something that you can really stress out over. However, I feel very strongly that it was more important to have a nice uniform tile without having to rip out the whole hallway and spend a whole bunch of money, and it was really the right choice. Now, when it came to choosing a paint color, I went with white. Initially, there was a paint color by Benjamin Moore called, I think it's called Dollar Bill Green. I am obsessed with it, and you might remember from my old house, my dining room was green. A deep green speaks to me in a very special way. Boy, do I love green. But according to the Feng Shui lady, she kind of said that green wasn't the vibe for the front entryway, and I'm really going with her advice. But also I realized that the most important thing in this space was brightness and lightness, and I didn't want to overwhelm anyone when they stepped in, right? So I felt like white was a really good choice, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, this is Benjamin Moore Simply White. The lighting. I want to talk about the pot lights. I pot lighted the daylights out of this house, but here's the thing. I went with 4,000, and if I could redo this, I would do 3,500, and I'll tell you why. Late at night, 4,000 is really bright here. So just a note, if you're doing a reno, go a little lower. 3,000 I think is too yellow, but I think 3,500 is great. Now, I also strongly disliked the chandelier that was right above this front entryway. And initially I thought about putting, something really large and maybe grand. I don't know what I was thinking, okay? But then I just spent a lot of time on Wayfair and I was looking. I wanted to find a chandelier that felt good and pretty, but not overimposing, and sort of worked and tied the space in. And because you can see it from the second floor, I also wanted to make sure that it worked and made sense in that space. So I landed on this chandelier, which I feel is really pretty, and I have to say, the person who installed it had other feelings about it, and I just let him know that's a you problem. This is my house. So I'm really happy with it. I think it looks great. He doesn't, and I'm fine with that. It's definitely been a journey going from being a married woman to a single woman and having my own house. And I've sort of documented how this is all going down in a series of videos. So you're going to see some of the different things that I've gone through over the past year and a bit. And that's all coming out in the next little while. Make sure that you're subscribed if you haven't done so already. And that brings me to this week's comment question, which is, if you could renovate any room in your house, which room would it be? Let me know in the comments down below. And what specifically would you do? Would you renovate your bathroom and put a toilet with a bidet in there? I think I would. Yeah, that might be in the next wave of budgetary things that I do. Anyway, let me know what you would do in the comments down below. And if you like what we do here at Clean My Space, there is a way that you can support us, and that's by becoming a member. If if you're curious about ways that you can sort of make your house over without having to go through a renovation, you might be interested in watching this video. It's 12 simple hacks on how to give your home a stunning makeover, but it's just small changes. You might really like it, so go ahead and check it out. And again, just a reminder to subscribe if you haven't done so already. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.